So the mayor of New York City is a guy by the name of Eric Adams. He's a former cop, and, he's just a weird dude. He's a weird dude. I'm being nice about this. I'm being diplomatic about it. But he's just strange. He's not like, your run-of-the-mill Democrat. He's a scatterbrain. He's got ideas from all over the place. And this is a great example of it here. So, given some sort of a press conference here, and he basically comes out against the separation of church and state, which is, by the way, of course, it would be unconstitutional to get rid of separation of church and state. And also, this is one of those issues where even if you have a religious Democrat, they never take this position. Like, the Democrats, by and large, almost across the board, unanimously support the separation of church and state and understand that, hey, my religious beliefs are private, that doesn't affect how I legislate. This guy, seemingly taking the exact opposite position. So let's listen to this clip here.
If we are bringing our best fight in the ring, we would not have homeless in this city. We would not have a crisis of domestic violence. We would not have children, because when we took prayers out of schools, guns came into schools.
When we took prayer out of schools, guns came into schools. Wow. Yeah, there's this whole causation correlation thing, Eric Adams. You might want to look into it. I would love to ask a follow-up question to him. Like, wait, hold on. So do you think that if we bring prayer back in school, that mass shootings would stop? Is that what you think? There's no way you can think that. There's no way you could think that. By the way, we have mass shootings. You guys know this. We have mass shootings all the time. I think it's over 30,000 gun deaths every year. Now, not all of them are mass shootings. Most of them are suicides. But we have mass shootings all the time in this country. We live in a country that's about 70% Christian. The majority of people involved in mass shootings, both the victims and the perpetrators, are Christian or are from Christian backgrounds. So obviously the religion is not like a cloak or a force field, a shield that protects you from the harms and the ills of the world. What are we talking about here? And he brings up homeless and says, like, man, if we got our stuff together, we wouldn't have homeless in the city. Yeah, you don't say. You don't say. Maybe you want to put a roof over all the homeless people's heads, but no, he's doing, honestly, the classic Democratic Party move now, which is just to criminalize homelessness. What happens when you criminalize homelessness? You're just like taking away their little tent that they have on a patch of grass in the middle of the city, and you're saying, just get out of here. Just go somewhere else. And so they have to go somewhere else and be homeless somewhere else. It's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind type thing, where it's like, you can be homeless, just don't be homeless in this city. Or go to this like roach-infested or rat-infested, terrible for-profit homeless house, which, has strict rules against pets and doesn't allow you to, doesn't allow drug use, and makes it so that they're just totally ineffectual. Totally ineffectual, doesn't work. I mean, it would be very easy, and it would save money to the taxpayers to just put a roof over every homeless person's head. But nobody wants to do that. There is no big homeless lobby. That's not a thing. And so it's a side issue, and to the extent any politicians do anything about homelessness, they just criminalize it and crack down on it, and either throw them in jail, or just destroy their property, steal their property, and say, just go somewhere else. But anyway, I'm getting off on a little side rant here. The separation of church and state thing is amazing. I mean, this is something you'd hear from, like, Mike Huckabee or Rick Santorum or Ted Cruz. When we took the prayer out of school, we took the prayer out of school and then the shootings start. So I got one more I got to show you here. I mean, this guy is really something. So Eric Adams just pulled out a sponge on stage and urged the crowd to embrace spirituality and, quote, wring out their despair. You will never be who you ought to be if you carry around a saturated sponge of despair. You got to wring it out, he says. And here's the picture of him holding the sponge. Bro. What? What? Don't you have, like, taxes to raise on rich people or something? Don't you have, wages to raise for working people? Don't you have, shouldn't you be raising the minimum wage or helping unions out or fixing potholes in the streets of New York City? Or shouldn't you be doing anything, like literally anything other than this? Anything. Now look, I got no problems. If he wants to be like a spiritual dude, but then he also has good ideas that he's fighting for and he's implementing, then I'd be like, hey, God bless, man. Totally cool. I got no problem with your spirituality. But he's not that. He's not doing stuff that helps the city. He's not doing the right thing. But he's giving goofy press conferences where he calls for an end to the separation of church and state. He thinks prayer stops shooting. And he's bringing out sponges talking about this is the sponge of despair. You need to get rid of all of your angst and your anger or whatever. Oh man, it's so, everything's so unserious. You know, everything is so unserious. A thought that I often have is like, you know, when you're a kid, you look at people who are in positions of power and you're like, oh man, oh, they must know stuff. They must know stuff. That's why they're in a position of power. And then you get older and you realize, well, you know, maybe they're just kind of like the same as me. And they're trying their best, but they're not getting very far. Then you get a little older and you go, oh, they're like, these are the dregs. These are the worst. These people's in position of power. Like, I could do better in a position of authority as a politician than these idiots can. You know, the reason why they got where they are is because they basically played the political game. The Machiavellian ladder climbing game, and it's got nothing to do with their ideas. It's got nothing to do with being a good leader. It's got nothing to do with helping people. And then, you know, you look up one day and you got this goofball holding a sponge, giving a weird speech, talking about how separation of church and state doesn't make sense. I would literally pick any one of you in my audience at random to be mayor of New York City, and you would do a better job than this goofball.